Hey cats, it's Ed, Midsole Bud here. We're talking new shoe velocity here. That's a Johnny Marr reference. You might get a brand new version of Puma's do-it-all running shoe in for review, the PUMA VELOCITY NITRO 3. Have they moved things forward with this 2024 update to their daily shoe? Is the big cat pouncing on the big sleeping giants that are knocking out the same shoe every year? Let's find out. Puma have fired these over to me for review, but they're not vetting my views before my valued viewers get to see them. We have here a UK size 11 or US size 12. The Velocity Nitro 3 clocks in at 312 grams or 11 ounces. So that is exactly the same as the past two versions of the Velocity series. Don't let this deter you though, because we've got 3mm of extra stack here in the heel and the forefoot. It is roughly an 8mm drop here by my estimations. I've got about 39mm of stack here in the heel and about 31mm up front. How they've managed to achieve more stack without any extra weight, I don't know, and that type of feel will continue throughout this review. So more stack, no extra gain. Nike, you need to sort yourselves out. I think a proper 2-year iteration of this shoe really has done it some favours. Now there does appear to be an adjusted last here. There is a little bit more room up front. I'd say that the shoe tapers in far less aggressively on the lateral side of the toe box this time. Though I would suggest the underfoot balance here has been addressed. There's a little less surface area here in the forefoot section of the shoe, and a little bit more in the heel. They've readdressed the balance a little bit. It's only by about 0.2 of a centimetre, but it does make a difference. I think that's probably to try and stabilise the ride from that increased midsole foam. 3 short A geometer measurements here. The Nitro foam top half of the midsole is about 29. We've got 40 for the Pro Foam EVA layer beneath that, and then 58 for the Puma Grip outsole rubber. So very similar readings there from the past two versions of the Velocity series. Maybe the Nitro foam is a tiny bit softer, but I think you've got to have very, very sensitive toes to detect that. That could be a thing though. Todd Folker did mention to me there are around 6 versions of Nitro foam, slightly different variations I suppose. Like all good reviews should start the upper first. On my initial runs, it's more accommodating for different feet now. Your toes don't feel quite so pulled together due to that very aggressive tapering on the last 2 versions of the shoe. I found the upper to be quite flexible, though it doesn't give like a lot of other running shoe uppers do after a few miles. I laced up and there was no need for retightening or anything on my initial outings. Somehow there's more heel padding here this time round, a little less on the tongue. They have kind of split it. As you can see here, they've chopped off bits that aren't required, cut out some unnecessary areas to minimise that weight even more. There's still bags of padding here in the key area where you're going to knot the shoe. It's an engineered mesh that runs pretty much the length of the whole shoe and a booty construction to that tongue. So it's like an outer layer and then a slightly softer inner layer. Certainly kept the feet warm on my initial run, where it's about 5 degrees C, around about 8 miles, 13 kilometres. Then I took them out for another spin, a sort of more steady pace I suppose this time round, a little less elevation, and that was about 2 degrees. Well, I didn't really feel like the feet were getting too cold or anything. We do have some use of the Puma power tape stuff. There's some around the heel area and then on the lateral side of the forefoot, and a plastic-like material there to provide a little bit of reinforcement to those eyelets. The power tape stuff certainly a thinner application this time around than what we saw on the Velocity 2. I think my only major gripe really with the Velocity 3 is the length of the laces. I could have done with quite a bit less really. I may chop them off and knot them at some point. They do have some stretch to them as well, so if that's the type of laces you like, I'll probably just switch them out for something a little bit shorter. Certainly a little bit more breathable this time around. I think that'll make the shoe somewhat more versatile for a few more runners in different climates. A little bit less bulk to the upper I suppose, and it's that little bit more flexible. All improvements over the V1 and the V2. It's certainly a better, more fitting shoe in terms of the upper this time around. I'm going to give the Velocity Nitro 3 a 2.8 out of 3 for the upper after my initial runs. Midsole, midsole, Midsole now. Midsole wise, the cushion that we're getting here really does come from that nitro foam. I think the pro foam layer on the bottom is really there to help stabilize that softer foam on the top. Again, I'm confused just how they've managed to keep the weight the same this time around, to the gram as well. It's literally exactly the same. I think there's a little bit less pro foam here in the heel area, and the shoe certainly does benefit from the additional extra few millimeters of nitro. I think it moves the shoe into a slightly different category than before. Rather than just a sort of daily driver, I'd quite happily use this for some easier recovery runs now, or perhaps some longer, slower miles. Maybe making it a touch more versatile than the previous two versions that have come before it. The midsole carefully sculpted there, and you really do benefit from the ridges cut into it. There's even a little bit of exposed midsole on the outsole area of the shoe now. I think again they've hollowed out the pro foam layer to try and relieve some weight. At steady paces, the shoe does well enough. It's just about light enough for some faster bursts, though I'd say it still sits in that sort of daily use category really, just edging towards those longer sessions now, which is a real bonus. Along the lines perhaps of the Triumph 21 for example, though I think that the shoe's a little bit less reliant on the larger stack that we have in the Triumph. The pro foam layer does supply a little bit of rigidity, certainly on toe off. It's just a little bit more structure and nuance to the midsole here over the Magnify Nitro 2. Not saying that's a bad shoe, that's a very compressive ride. This one's more sort of smooth and nimble feeling. I think at daily paces for me it's just as inviting to wear as the Triumph 21 from Saucony. Certainly a little bit more nimble than the Ride 17. After some break-in miles, I think the shoe's kind of freed up a little bit as well. Just a little bit more airy. I think the midsole here is a bit less compressive than that Float Ride Energy foam. There's a bit more get up and go than Nike's React foam as well. It's a more exciting ride as well in the Velocity 3 than the Vomero 17. I'd say on my initial runs it's the best daily shoe that I've tried out in a long time. I'll give this a midsole score of 2.8 out of 3 so far. Outsole wise, it's Puma grip and you know it's gonna produce the goods. This time round though, over the Velocity 2, we've got more ridges and lugs than usual, and a little extra weight relieved in the midfoot area to save a few grams. Quite the departure from the last model really. I think it makes the Velocity 3 a little bit more versatile again. It's just covering more ground, this one, more sort of categories, and it's service as usual really with the Puma grip. Very difficult to fault this one really, aside from getting some smaller bits of grit and stone caught up in some of the ridges. But it's really easy to get rid of. I think perhaps if you're running a lot on gravel and small stones might be a bit of an issue, but I think the rubber and the pro foam layer are going to protect the nitro enough that it's not too much of a worry. I certainly feel that the rubber flexes and assists the midsole to produce that nice smooth feel. Just remains a nice versatile shoe, and there's enough sort of propulsion there from the sort of toe off area, and it also reaches back into the heel nicely to protect that foam a little bit further. Very little to dislike here. I'll give it a 2.8 out of 3 for the outsole, with only a bit of grit build-up ushered out by the firm bristle brush. Value now. Now, value-wise, this is the sort of secret weapon to the shoe. It's coming in at 110 Earth credits here in the UK. That is a bonkers price for what you're getting here in the Velocity 3. It really does make this model impossible not to like. There's so little to dislike here. It's easily a better pickup than Nike's Pegasus 40. Just kind of makes it feel a little bit out of date. Top price for a shoe with just bags of value to it. Where you see daily shoe prices only going upwards really, it's really refreshing to see Puma putting a price at £110. Other manufacturers are going to find it hard to beat this shoe for that category. It's pretty good quality out the box. I've got no dodgy glue marks, there's no weird stitching or anything. And apparently there's even going to be a Gore-Tex version of this shoe coming very soon. I think at 110 quid, that means I've got to give this a value score of at least 2.8 out of 3. Maybe they could make it a touch lighter in the future, but I'm splitting hairs there. Keeping it at 2.8 out of 3, mainly due to versatility. If you're going to run some all-out sessions, it's probably going to be a little bit too heavy for that. I believe this one launches on the 24th of January in some retailers. You're going to have to wait till February the 1st though to see it on Puma's website. Keep your eyes peeled. Certainly the best daily shoe I've reviewed in ages. If I've totaled the scores up correctly, that gives us 11.2 out of 12 for the Puma Velocity Nitro 3. An absolute banger, this one. You're definitely going to want to check it out. They've refined what was already a very good daily shoe and made it even better, and kept it the same weight. What's not to like? Quick musical interlude for you. Very interesting to see Liam Gallagher teaming up with John Squire. They've stuck a single out, and I believe there's an album coming as well. The single's called Just Another Rainbow. I did check it out. I was a little bit hesitant to at first, but I was really quite impressed actually by the sound. Wonderful sort of vintage indie type feel here, I guess. You've certainly got some elements of both of the artists involved. Pretty good vocal delivery from Liam, but I think for me it's all about the drums and awesome groove that John Squire creates with that Stratocaster of his. There's some awesome effects here and a whole sort of barrage of different guitar tones as well that I really like. There's some sort of phasey, flanging sort of effects at the very start of the track, lots of echo on everything. Later on he's got a really nice distorted solo tone and playing some nice spaced out, well chosen notes, I suppose, rather than just sort of twiddling and making a noise. The groove just sort of evolves over time as well. It does sound very much like a Stone Roses track, but sort of brought into the sort of modern era, certainly with Liam's vocal as well. It does sound on good voice, I've got to give it to him. Not entirely sure about the sort of lyrics and stuff. They're more painting a picture, I suppose. No pun intended. At one point he's talking about a load of different colours of the rainbow, but hey, his songs have never been sort of literary masterpieces really. Go and check it out and see what you make of it. John Squire and Liam Gallagher with Just Another Rainbow. Hope you enjoyed today's review, people. Do help the channel to continue to grow by hitting that subscribe button, but also giving this video a thumbs up like. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you